Hi guys, welcome back to Trilogy's channel. We're starting something new today. We are going to be collaborating with a lot of different luxury brands. There's a lot of synergy there with us and some other people all around London and the country. So today we're off to Mayfair, to St James, to go to the Davidoff cigar shop. We're going to meet Eddie, the proprietor. He's going to talk us through some cigars, a bit of history of cigars, some price points, just a whole thing about the cigars, and they've got some whiskey selections there. So I think it will be a really interesting day. So let's head over there. But before we do, my watch of the day is the RM67 in rose gold. I've just put it on the white strap. It's the extra flat. I've done a video about this a couple of months back. You can watch that by clicking up there now. So yeah, it's a great watch. The video when I sold it was 132k. These have gone up a bit now. This one's for sale for 150 with box and papers. Let me know if you're interested. And yeah, let's get over to Davidoff.
Good afternoon, welcome. My name is Edward Sahakian. I'm the son of the proprietor, Edward Sahakian, and you are in the Davidoff of London flagship store. Established in 1980, it's 41 years this year we've been going. We like to think we offer everything a smoker would enjoy. Of course, cigars, our own Davidoffs, as well as the Cubans, all the accessories that go with it, some beautiful humidors, some fine whiskies. We're delighted to welcome you today.
Well, we're here today with Eddie. It was a lovely introduction from him. Just looking to learn a bit about cigars. I've smoked a few in the past, but I don't really know that much, and I think they've got a fantastic selection here. And we're really looking forward to learning a bit, and it should be really interesting.
This is called the Havana room, the humidor room, or the cigar room. The point is it's humidified and conditioned to keep the cigars in pristine condition for enjoyment. Please, after you. Cigars, like fine wine, have an appeal across palates. So you always have to remember who you're buying for, yourself, for someone else, the occasion, the time you have, and you will always find the right cigar. If you come in and say, what is the best? What is the rarest, most special cigar I can enjoy? There's a few that come into that category. Certainly in Davidoff's own, we have the Royal line, which is a very big Salamones and a smaller Robusto. These are very rare aged tobaccos, 10 to 12 years old. The price point is about £100 a cigar. It is pure pleasure. Medium strength. If you look across to the Cubans, perhaps the most famous brand is Cohiba. I'll just show you on the shelf here. This is our Cohiba selection. And within the Cohiba brand, there are rare cigars and indeed limited edition cigars that are very collectible, very desirable. Not only have they improved because of time, but they're also limited productions that collectors will covet and smokers will want to smoke. I'll show you a few examples here. Here I've got the 1966 Cohiba. This is a limited edition that was produced in 2011. We've added this foot. This is our own private reserve label because we of course buy the cigars, then we age them and improve them and then release them for sale. Something like this is about £350 for the cigar. At the time it would have come out, it would have been perhaps 10 times less than that. So 1966 is talking about the origin of the Cohiba brand. So the mythology of Cohiba is that in 1966, Fidel Castro was given a cigar by his bodyguard, and he loved it. And he said, "Where did you get this?" They found the two rollers responsible for it. They took him into a room and said, "You're going to make the cigars only for Comandante, Fidel Castro." And that was the birth of Cohiba. So Frankie, I'll start with one of my favorites. It's the Davidoff number 2. It's here. You can see it's a really elegant size. It's called, in Cuban, a Corona Especial. For Davidoff, it's called a Panatella. And it's distinguished by the ring gauge, which is slim by today's standards. It's a 38 ring gauge. That's how we measure the thickness of the cigar. It's almost 6 inches in length. It's got a wonderful finish to the top here. It's called a pigtail. Davidoff are quite famous for that, as are a few of the Cuban brands. And that's really just an adornment on top of the cigar. Why do I love this cigar? The origin is Dominican, so the principal tobaccos in there are from Dominican Republic. And the character of that type of tobacco is light, creamy, approachable. The size is very easy to smoke. Another one of my favorites is this one. It's the Epicure number 2. Why do I love the Epicure number 2? Well, it's got all the DNA of the Hoy de Monterey brand. So light, easy, good after lunch cigar. The size is a very popular size these days. It's called a Robusto. So So it's a little thicker than the Davidoff I showed you. It's a 50 ring gauge. Length is just under 5 inches. This is still going to give you about 45 minutes to an hour of smoking pleasure. Just the right size for a lot of people. You know, they don't want something, they don't waste a cigar.
Yeah.
And by about this point on the cigar, you've had plenty of flavor, and it's been a gorgeous smoke. So keep this in your mind. This is one for everyday smoking, I would say.
Okay.
Can be smoked after dinner as well, but typically after lunch.
And what do you think in terms of pairing? I've always, as I said, had it post-dinner, a cigar post-dinner with a brandy.
Yes.
Which is, a lot of people seem to say. Do you think brandy's the best thing to have with a cigar?
I
or
think
would you
brandy
say,
is
you sell whiskey here, would you say whiskey's a better option?
Again, purely subjective. There's no right answer to that. What I tend to like is a sympathetic or complementary flavor in the mouth. So I tend to go for drinks that bring me some sweetness to contrast the smokiness that you get in a lot of cigars. So for me, yes, I love a cognac, a nice brandy. I love typically a Speyside whiskey, which has a bit more fruitiness to it. Less fond of the very smoky Islay style whiskies.
Like the PT?
Yes, because I find they kind of fight with the cigar for the same place on the palate, and they overlap too much. Some people love it. One of my favorites is dessert wines. So a Sauternes, Chateau Yquem, if you have the means, a Tokai from Hungary, ice vines from Canada, Rieslings from Germany. These are amazing as well because they have a sweetness. It's not too strong on the alcohol content, and it tends to coat your palate in a lovely oily texture that then mixes with the smoke as you're smoking, and it creates something new. That's what I look for.
Okay, so obviously we've talked about cigars, and I think we've discussed a little bit about drinks and the pairings, and obviously you've got a lovely whiskey selection here. So I was just wondering if we could talk a bit about that and how you'd pair it. And
with great pleasure. Well, we're here at our rare whiskey cabinet, and love to show you some of my favorites. I'll start at the top. This is one of our most recent arrivals, but it's really special for us. Last year in 2020, we celebrated our 40th anniversary of being here. So we commissioned a special cask and we bottled it to celebrate that occasion. And we branded it our own. It's Edward Sahakian single malt Scotch whiskey. It was distilled in 1980, same year we opened, and it was bottled December 2019, so it's not quite 40 years, it's 39 years, but it's a Glenrothes, it's a single cask, bourbon finished, and it's absolute beauty. My father and I went through a lot of whiskies before we found this one that worked really well for us. And as we come down here, we're looking at some of the Japanese whiskies, and in recent years, Japan and Japanese whiskies have become incredibly collectible. We're lucky enough we've got some of the really rare stuff. The Kurosawa here is a closed distillery from Japan. Anything Kurosawa is collectible and rare. This particular one from 1983, it's a 31-year-old, and it's 8,500, and that's scarcity. It's of course very, very well executed whiskey. I've yet to try it, so I can't tell you how good it is with a cigar, but it's a special one.
why is it so dark as opposed to other whiskey? I've not seen a whiskey that sort of black before.
Yeah, that can be sometimes how it's finished. So if it's finished in a particular cask, it could be a sherry cask, which gives it a certain additional depth of colour, perhaps. It's very dependent on the cask. What goes into the cask, at inception, is basically clear liquid. So any colour you see on whiskey and any differential you see in the colours is down to the cask it's aged in.
So obviously we've been in your cigar room, we see how you store them, keep everything in pristine condition. What about for an everyday cigar collector? How would you recommend they store their cigars, and what would you say is the best to do?
For sure, yeah, that's a very good question. Get asked a lot. Humidor is the way to go. We have a lovely selection of humidors here. There's several brands now that will do wonderful humidors. We've had a long history, of course, Davidoff's own cigar humidors. They're wonderfully well made. And Elie Bleu, they're our principal two brands we work with. Elie Bleu is a French producer, established about 45, 50 years ago in Paris. I can show you a few examples here. Probably one of my favorites would be this one. It's Madrona wood, which is quite a bold wood, stained blue, and it's a cabinet. So this opens up.
Oh wow, nice.
And you have cedar lined inside. You have trays to put your individual cigars, or indeed you can put boxes inside. We'll keep about 200, 250 cigars in there in perfect condition. Of course, all humidors should have a humidification unit, which is the key component for keeping a cigar in the right condition. Our own Winston Churchill, this is one of Davidoff's, and it's a really well-made humidor. Davidoff are infamous for the humidification unit internally. They do the best of the best. It's a self-regulating unit, so it's very easy to maintain your cigars in the optimum humidity conditions. Designs are beautiful. Winston Churchill is a more modern take on their brand, because they have a Winston Churchill brand as well.
So we've seen some great cigars and how to store them, and then obviously the most important part of the cigar is how to smoke them. So I think we're going to talk through a bit about that now.
With pleasure. So once you've chosen the cigar, in this case I've got the number 2, take it out, and you need to cut it first. So with a cigar, of course you have the open end, this is where you're going to light it. The closed end here, this is where you're going to cut. And if you notice on a cigar, there's a sort of line, there's what's called the cap that comes over the top of the cigar. So it leaves a little line there. You want to cut the cigar above that line and quite close to the end. Otherwise it can unwind if it cuts too deep. The wrapper leaf that's on the outside can unwind. So it's just a small thing. What you cut it with, you have plenty of choice. In this case I'm using my favorite, it's the Davidoff scissor cutters. Super sharp surgical steel. Very important that you're using a very sharp implement. And cutters can be done in several sizes and varieties and shapes, but principally there's ones which cut across like that. They're called scissor or guillotine cutters. There's ones which is a punch cut, where it punches and gouges a little hole through it. And there's also V-cuts, where you cutting like a little valley into the cigar. This is my favorite for certainly this ring gauge of cigar. So, you want to bring it up here, and you just line it up just beneath there. And then it's about a very firm... You see that? That's ready now. So we've cut it. It's ready to enjoy. We need to light it. How are we going to light it? I get asked a lot, what shall I use to light a cigar? And it's very straightforward, nothing to worry about or panic about, but you want to avoid a couple of things. Don't ever use a paraffin-based light like a Zippo, because the aroma from the paraffin will get into the cigar and ruin the pleasure. You can use natural butane gas lighters, which is the majority of lighters. They're odorless and no problem with that. You can use a cigar match, which is normally a bit longer, and when you light it, just let the tip flare so the sulfur aroma comes off, and then you can light it with a match. I tend to use a lighter, and I'll show you here how you can do it. If you're indoors and it's not windy, you can easily use a yellow flame lighter. It's one of my favorites. It's a DuPont Davidoff. It's got a nice yellow flame, and you want to bring the tip just above the yellow flame there. And can you see I'm just rotating it as I'm lighting it? And it will take a little bit of time, so I'm just going to blow on it to check how much is lit. Do it for the camera here as I blow on it. It's all glowing red. That is ready now. I would offer it to you to take the first puff if you like.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. It's ready to enjoy now.
That is very nice.
Wonderful.
So that was a fantastic tour of the shop, Eddie. Really great to see the selection you've got and learn about cigars and the history and just everything about it. I've bought a few myself today now, and I'm looking forward to coming back. So thank you very much.